The wind howled across the endless expanse of the frontier, carrying with it icy shards that bit at Jonah's face, reminding him with every step that the wilderness was unforgiving. He had been traveling for hours, his boots sinking into the thick, powdery snow, and yet he refused to stop. His hands, numb and raw beneath his worn leather gloves, clutched the reins of his horse, which had grown tired and sluggish under the weight of their journey. The mail pouch at his side was heavy, but it was not the burden he carried that mattered, it was the letter tucked inside, one that could change the life of the woman waiting at the other end of this frozen trail. Her name was Clara, and she had been the warmth of his life for years, though they had barely shared a single conversation beyond friendly greetings at the trading post. In this harsh land, kindness was rare, and yet Clara had always offered it freely. To the orphans she cared for, to the widows she comforted, and to Jonah himself, she was a flicker of light that refused to be extinguished. When he had learned that she had fallen ill during the brutal winter storm that had swept through the territory, he knew he could not wait for others to deliver help, he had to go himself, even if it meant crawling through the snow to reach her. By midday, the wind had grown sharper, turning the sky a gray so heavy it pressed down on him, threatening to push him off the trail entirely. Jonah's horse stumbled, and he tumbled forward into the drifts, tasting the icy sting of snow in his mouth. Pain surged through his body, and a voice in the back of his mind whispered that he might not make it. But the thought of Clara, lying feverish and alone, kept him moving. Every scrape of his knees, every frostbitten finger, every shivering breath was a step closer to her. Hours passed in a blur of white and misery. His horse, sensing the desperation in its rider, pressed on with a stubbornness that mirrored Jonah's own. At one point, he found himself crawling on hands and knees through a particularly treacherous stretch of frozen ground, unable to maintain his footing. The snow, deep and unyielding, seemed to conspire against him, but he refused to yield. With each grueling movement, he murmured Clara's name, as if speaking it aloud could summon warmth back into his aching limbs. Then, suddenly, the landscape shifted. Through the haze of snow, a small cabin emerged, smoke curling weakly from the chimney. Relief surged through him, and he crawled the last few yards with renewed determination. He pounded on the door, his voice hoarse and trembling, and moments later, it opened to reveal a woman in a shawl, her eyes wide with concern. She led him inside, into a modest room filled with the faint scent of pine and burning wood. Here, at last, Jonah could warm himself, and more importantly, he could find Clara. Clara lay on a cot near the fireplace, her cheeks pale but her eyes lighting up when they met Jonah's. She tried to speak, but her voice was weak, almost swallowed by the crackle of the fire. Jonah knelt beside her, pressing the letter into her hands, and as she read it, tears formed in her eyes. It was a notice that the trading post had approved her request for supplies and funding for the orphanage she ran, something that would allow her to care for the children even in the harshest winters. Her lips quivered, and she looked up at him, a mix of gratitude, relief, and something deeper that neither had spoken aloud. But their reunion was cut short by a sudden realization. Outside, the storm had worsened, and the path back to safety was uncertain. Jonah knew they could not risk leaving immediately. Without hesitation, he stripped off his heavy coat and placed it over Clara's shoulders, insisting that she rest and recover while he fortified the cabin's small provisions. The hours stretched long, each tick of the clock accompanied by the howl of the wind outside. Jonah kept vigil, tending to the fire, fetching water, and ensuring Clara's blanket was snug around her shivering frame. In these quiet moments, the connection between them deepened not through grand declarations, but through small, selfless acts of care that spoke louder than any words could. As night fell, Jonah finally allowed himself a moment to sit back and catch his breath. The storm was relentless, but inside that little cabin, something far more powerful had taken root. Clara's hand found his, and in that simple gesture, both of them understood that they had found in each other a refuge from the harshness of the world. Love, they realized, was not always about sweeping gestures, sometimes it was about crawling through the snow, enduring hardship, and showing up when it mattered most. By morning, the storm had eased, leaving a sparkling layer of frost over the landscape. Jonah helped Clara outside, where the sun broke through the clouds, casting a golden light over the icy world. For the first time in days, they could breathe freely, and Jonah felt a profound sense of peace. The frontier remained unforgiving, but together, they had weathered the storm. Their bond had been forged in the cold, tested by adversity, and strengthened by compassion. As they walked hand in hand back toward the trading post, the children of the orphanage rushing to meet them with wide smiles and laughter, Jonah understood something he had known all along: love and kindness were not just abstract virtues, they were lifelines. They were the forces that kept people moving, even through the fiercest blizzards, and the forces that transformed despair into hope. Clara, smiling warmly at him, whispered, "We made it." And in that moment, Jonah realized that no storm, no hardship, could ever diminish the power of humanity when it was guided by selflessness and care. From that day forward, the story of Jonah and Clara became more than just a tale of survival. It became a legend in the frontier, a reminder to everyone who heard it that even in the coldest, most unforgiving places, love and kindness could create warmth that endured. They continued to care for the children, to support neighbors, and to live fully in the harsh land that had once seemed so merciless. And as the snow fell gently around them each winter, they knew that they had discovered something eternal, not just in each other, but in the enduring power of human compassion.